Chapter 1714. Wife, even if it will be a little troublesome to deal with this matter, I won't let the people who bullied you go unpunished. The handsome eyes as deep as the sea were filled with cold light. The great elder's action this time was too much. Now Heng Zhuang had to stay in Tiangang sect to cultivate. If the great elder was so narrow-minded, he was afraid that more trouble would be inevitable. Therefore, he would gradually take away the power that belonged to the great elder. After all, he needed a reason to deal with the great elder directly. The disappearance of Wu Yuexin and others was now a dead man telling no tales, so he could only use other methods. It would take some time, but the result would not change. Bailey Hongzhuang held Di Beichen's hand tightly, and her bright eyes were filled with gentleness and tenderness. She understood that Di Beichen had already made a plan in his heart. This man's means of dealing with things was always admirable. Since he already had a plan, why should she worry? Originally, she was a little worried about how Di Beichen would view the death of Han Xiling. Now it seemed that she didn't need to care. Di Beichen had already seen through everything. She was afraid that she would be worried, so he didn't say much. Now that the obstacles between the two had been overcome one by one, she believed that they would be smoother in the future. After rushing for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen finally arrived at Tiangang sect. Coming to Tiangang sect again, Bailey Hongzhuang's mood had changed compared to 2 years ago. When she first came to Tiangang sect, her heart was uneasy. She was worried that her appearance would bring trouble to Di Beichen. She was worried that she and Di Beichen would be hindered. However, when she went to Tiangang sect, this series of things did happen. Fortunately, Di Beichen had solved them one by one. This time, when she returned to Tiangang sect, the only problem was to fight with Elder Han Hongyi. However, Han Hongyi's strength alone was obviously not enough. Therefore, there was no need for her to worry. At this moment, in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind, the idea that was constantly hovering in her mind was the matter of blood identification with the sect master. After arriving at Tiangang sect, she would presumably carry out the blood identification. It would be best to confirm this matter as soon as possible. If they weren't related by blood, Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't have thought much about it. However, if she was really related by blood to the sect master, then all of this would undoubtedly be a huge conspiracy arranged by the Yu clan. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a chill in her heart when she thought of the depth of this conspiracy. Yu Xiqing was simply too terrifying. Perhaps, in Yu Xiqing's eyes, Yu Manlan was just a chess piece. Her real motive wasn't to help Yu Manlan, but to destroy Mu Lingbing's happiness. If that was really the case, then this woman's viciousness was simply shocking. It was already very vicious to destroy the relationship between the sect master and Mu Jins. She didn't succeed in her attempt to ascend to the top. After that, she continued to retaliate. This woman simply put everything into hatred. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen appeared in front of the disciples of Tiangang sect, the crowd couldn't help but burst into a burst of exclamations. Gazes of amazement and shock fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, the name of Bailey Hongzhuang was known by everyone in Tiangang sect. Chapter 1715. Bailey Hongzhuang is actually here. Great Elder must be furious now. That may not be the case. Even if Great Elder is resentful, no one knows what is going on. I think that the reason why Han Xiling participated in the assessment competition was to kill Bailey Hongzhuang, but she failed and was killed instead. Although we didn't see it with our own eyes, I think that this matter is most likely related to Bailey Hongzhuang. So what? Han Xiling is already dead. A dead person doesn't have any meaning. I think this Bailey Hongzhuang is really amazing. She is obviously a cultivator from a small empire, but she can actually become the champion of the assessment competition. This can be considered the biggest dark horse in the assessment competition for so many years. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang herself, but even her friends have also achieved very good results. This really isn't an ordinary thing. Han Xiling has occupied the position of big senior sister in Tiangang's sect for so many years. I didn't expect that she would be replaced by Bailey Hongzhuang in such a short time. The affairs of the world are really unpredictable. After seeing the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone was filled with emotion. Han Xiling was so arrogant in Tiangang's sect that it was as if no one among the women could be on par with her. Although she had always been sought after outside of Tiangang's sect, to the disciples of Tiangang's sect, she was too arrogant. She usually looked down on everything and was even more disdainful of them. Therefore, in the eyes of many male cultivators, Han Xiling was a goddess-like existence. However, to the women, such a Han Xiling was obviously not what they liked. However, Han Xiling had stayed in Tiangang's sect for so long after all. They didn't expect that she would fall like this. It was really beyond their expectations. Now, they had a faint feeling in their hearts that Bailey Hongzhuang was probably going to replace Han Xiling as an extraordinary existence in Tiangang's sect. As for Bailey Hongzhuang, most people were unfamiliar with her. They had never interacted with Bailey Hongzhuang before, so they naturally didn't know what kind of person she was. However, based on their current situation, they only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't a simple person. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that everyone's eyes were filled with nervousness and vigilance. She couldn't help but feel a little helpless. She didn't want everyone to be afraid of her, but it wasn't strange that the things that had happened before had led to such a result. To improve this, she had to rely on her future actions in Tiangang's sect to gradually improve all of this. She believed that misunderstandings were just misunderstandings, and it wouldn't take long for them to be completely cleared up. Young Master. As Di Beichen appeared, all the cultivators present bowed to him. Di Beichen nodded slightly, and then walked into Tiangang's sect with Bailey Hongzhuang. He believed that his master must be waiting for them to come back. At the end of the assessment competition, he planned to take Hongzhuang back to Tiangang's sect to confirm this matter. However, because of the proposal of Xia Jiqing and others, they first went back to Kanglin College, and then went to Wuji Palace. They didn't return to Tiangang's sect until now. Although his master had never shown it, with his understanding of his master, he knew that his master must be very concerned about this matter. Chapter 17-16. For a long time, Master had always thought that he was alone. At that time, because of Yu Xiqing's obstruction, he had such a big misunderstanding with Master's wife and regretted it for life. After so many years, Master had never found Master's wife. Even if Master's will was firm, there was no news of Master's wife for so many years. The loss in his heart could be imagined. Perhaps, it would be impossible to see Master's wife again in this life. If Hongzhuang was really Master's granddaughter, then Master's heart could be rekindled with hope. At least, he was not alone in this world. He had a daughter, a son-in-law, a granddaughter, and him. Di Beichen was also a little worried. After so many years, Master's heart finally rekindled with hope. If he was disappointed again, Master's heart would be very uncomfortable. However, this was something that had to be faced sooner or later. Only by confirming it earlier could they be more certain of the direction of the investigation. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Di Beichen all the way forward. She had already been to Tiangang's sect before, but the main area of activity was Di Beichen's palace. Most of the other places were only visited once, and there were many places that she had never been to. Tiangang's sect's range was very large. She was not a disciple of Tiangang's sect before, so she could not walk around at will. After all, there was the existence of Han Xiling and Great Elder. If she acted rashly, they would definitely find trouble with her. Now Di Beichen took her to a place that she had never been to before. However, she believed that in the future, she would also walk every inch of Tiangang's sect and make it a place that she was familiar with. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had never been to this place, as long as she thought about it, she knew that Di Beichen must be taking her to see the sovereign. This was the most important thing at the moment. He Mu originally followed Di Beichen all the way forward, but halfway, Di Beichen let He Mu take the three beasts to wait for them in the palace. At present, only he, Master and Hong Zhuang knew about the blood test. Before everything was confirmed, it was better not to let others know about this news. If the result was confirmed, it would be fine. If not, it would be tantamount to making a mistake. He had nothing to do with Hong Zhuang, but it was not appropriate to make such a thing as master. Therefore, Di Beichen made such a decision. Hearing Di Beichen's instructions, He Mu immediately went to the palace. When the three beasts saw their master leave with Di Beichen, they couldn't help but curl their lips. They also wanted to know the result as soon as possible. However, since it was inconvenient to bring them along, then they would stay in the palace to wait for the result. Anyway, when they arrived at Tiangang Zone, there was Di Beichen by their master's side. They did not need to worry about their master being in danger. With Di Beichen's ability in Tiangang sect, no one could hurt their master. He Mu took the three beasts all the way back to Di Beichen's palace. Thinking back to those years, he almost stayed in Tiangang sect. However, since the young sect master's leg problem 5 years ago, he had been running around almost all the time. Now that he returned to Tiangang sect again, he missed the days outside very much. At that time, the days were also very carefree, but now that the three beasts were back, the days became a lot livelier. Chapter 17:17. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Di Beichen all the way forward. Finally, a bedroom appeared in front of her. This was already the rear of Tiangang sect. Usually, no cultivators would come here at all, but the scenery was extremely elegant. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had never been here before, she could conclude that this was the bedroom of the sect master just by looking at the situation here. The sect master rarely appeared in front of the cultivators on normal days. As long as it was not a major event in the sect, he would not appear at all. For the cultivators in the sect master had always been a mysterious and powerful existence. Now that Tiangang sect already had Di Beichen as the young sect master, in order to support Di Beichen's identity, the sect master had almost handed over everything to Di Beichen to deal with, so the number of times he appeared was even less. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile. When she was in the Bailey family, the old guys in the family also liked to find these quiet and elegant places to live. "This is Master's bedroom," Di Beichen introduced aloud. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, and her eyes fell on the vicinity of the bedroom. The layout here was somewhat similar to Di Beichen's bedroom, but the sect master's bedroom was more stable, and Di Beichen's bedroom was more bright. "When I was young, I often stayed in Master's bedroom, and Master taught me cultivation here. It was not until I grew up that I went to my own bedroom. However, when Master was in Tiangang sect, I still often came over." His deep starry eyes were filled with nostalgia. Everything in the past seemed to be vivid in his mind, and now he had already grown up. This time really passed quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen, who was reminiscing, and the smile on her lips could not help but spread a little. She had always understood that the sect master was both Di Beichen's master and family. In Di Beichen's childhood, the sect master was the most important existence. Therefore, Di Beichen had always respected and loved the sect master. Presumably, Di Beichen's feelings towards the blood test were extremely complicated. Bailey Hongzhuang held Di Beichen's hand tightly. Her delicate face was filled with a warm smile. "We'll know the answer soon. No matter what the answer is, it's always better to know it early." Hearing this, Di Beichen nodded slightly. However, compared to the two outcomes, he hoped more that Hong Zhuang was his master's granddaughter. This was good news for both his master and Hong Zhuang. He was the first to come up with this idea, because these things could be completely linked together. Although he did not have enough evidence, he had a very strong premonition that this was the real result. After all, a coincidence could be a coincidence, but if too many coincidences were linked together, it would not be a coincidence, but a man-made one. "Wife, no matter what the result is, you don't have to feel burdened. We're just here to confirm the result." Di Beichen's handsome face was once again filled with a smile as he comforted Bailey Hongzhuang. His feelings were very complicated, and presumably his wife's feelings should be very complicated too. They were all leaning towards the same result, and only hoped that they would not be disappointed. Ever since Han Hengyi found out about the news of Han Shiling's death, his mood had become extremely low. The greatest hope and sustenance of his life had disappeared just like that. He was really a white-haired man who had to send off his own son. Chapter 17-18. Even if he didn't have any evidence, he believed that Shi Ling's death must be related to Bailey Hongzhuang. He didn't believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could defeat Shi Ling with her strength. He thought that Bailey Hongzhuang must have used some underhanded means to make Shi Ling fall. When he thought of this, Han Hengyi's hatred for Bailey Hongzhuang continued to deepen. Since the appearance of this woman, Shi Ling's life had changed. Everything he originally planned was destroyed. Now, Shi Ling had fallen. Even if he was still the great elder of Tiangang sect, what was the point? Once Bailey Hongzhuang became the mistress of Tiangang sect, then what was the use of his existence? He would never let Bailey Hongzhuang become the mistress of Tiangang sect so smoothly. Shi Ling fell to such a point, he would definitely let Bailey Hongzhuang pay the price. Han Hengyi stayed in the house these days. The initial sadness and pain gradually turned into hatred and disgust for Bailey Hongzhuang. Since Shi Ling fell because of Bailey Hongzhuang, then, he would let Bailey Hongzhuang be buried with Shi Ling. Only in this way, he could go and see Shi Ling in the future. After all, if he didn't let Shi Ling participate in the assessment competition, then Shi Ling would not fall to such a point. He had regretted to the extreme. At the beginning, he never thought that such a situation would happen. In his opinion, this was something that was set in stone. With Shi Ling's strength, it was undoubtedly easy to solve Bailey Hongzhuang. However, who would have thought that things would develop to this point? This was simply unreasonable. At the beginning, he also understood the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang. Although her strength was not weak, with Shi Ling's strength and Wu Yuxin and others, they could definitely solve it. After thinking about all this, Han Hengyi's mind faintly had a guess. Perhaps Di Beichen had something to do with it. He did not believe that with the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and her teammates, they could kill Shi Ling. Once Di Beichen was involved, then the situation would be different. As the young lord of Tiangang sect, Di Beichen always had a lot of tricks up his sleeve. What's more, it was not surprising that Di Beichen liked Bailey Hongzhuang so much. However, these were not the most important things for Han Hengyi. The most important thing was to let Bailey Hongzhuang accompany Han Shiling to the grave. In his eyes, Di Beichen was only bewitched by Bailey Hongzhuang's seductive methods. It wouldn't take long for him to see Bailey Hongzhuang's true colors. Just as Han Hengyi was thinking about how to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang, a voice came from outside the door. Great Elder, Great Elder. Bailey Hongzhuang is back. Tao Tsongrong stood outside Han Hengyi's door, her face full of anxiety. As early as before, Great Elder had already told her that once Bailey Hongzhuang came to Tiangang sect, she should immediately come to inform him. She originally thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would come to Tiangang sect again after 3 months. She did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to come back so early this time. Moreover, she came back with the young lord as if she was the young lord's wife. After learning about this, she immediately rushed over and informed the great elder of this matter. She grew up with Miss since she was a child. She did not expect that Miss would die because of Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 17-19. Han Hengyi, who was originally in low spirits, was instantly energized when he heard Tao Tsongrong's words. He immediately opened the door and saw Tao Tsongrong outside the house. When Tao Tsongrong saw Han Hengyi, she couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Usually, the first elder had a sage-like appearance. Just looking at him made people involuntarily respect him. However, the great elder in front of her did not have his usual sage-like appearance. After so many days of not tidying himself up, the great elder's face was covered with stubble and his eyes were sunken in. He did not have the slightest bit of energy. Seeing Han Hengyi in this state, Tao Tsongrong's heart was filled with emotions. Young lady's death had really dealt a huge blow to the great elder. You said that Bailey Hongzhuang is back. Han Hengyi's gaze suddenly focused and locked onto Tao Tsongrong. Sensing Han Hengyi's terrifying gaze, Tao Tsongrong could not help but feel a huge pressure. She immediately nodded and said, "She's back. Young sect master and Bailey Hongzhuang have just returned. Everyone has seen them." Tao Tsongrong replied. "Where are they going now?" Han Hengyi quickly asked. They went in the direction of the sect master's bedroom. Tao Tsongrong told Han Hengyi all the news she had learned. These days, she had been paying attention to the movements of Tian Gangzong, so that when Bailey Hongzhuang came back, she could be the first to find out. Therefore, she was extremely sure of this news. "I understand." Han Hengyi left a sentence and closed the door, no longer paying attention to Tao Tsongrong who was outside the house. Tao Tsongrong did not find it strange when she saw the tightly shut door. She believed that since Bailey Hongzhuang had returned, then it was time for the great elder to take action. She only needed to wait for the final result. She believed that the great elder would definitely avenge young lady. When she thought of Bailey Hongzhuang and young sect master's carefree looks, she felt an indescribable anger. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked into Si Tuyen's bedroom, Si Tuyen already knew of their appearance and opened the door directly. "Come in." Hearing Si Tuyen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and walked in together. "Master." Di Beichen bowed. "Greetings, sect master." Bailey Hongzhuang also bowed respectfully. Regardless of whether she was related to the sect master or not, the sect master had never objected to her relationship with Di Beichen. She was extremely grateful to the sect master for this. Looking at the perfect couple, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, Si Tuyen nodded slightly, and his eyes were filled with admiration. When Di Beichen and Han Shiling stood together, he felt that something was missing. Even if the great elder tried his best to matchmake them, Han Shiling kept trying to please Di Beichen. But in his opinion, the situation was not right. Now that he saw Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang together, he felt that they were a real couple. This was because both of their eyes and brows revealed their sincerity. "You're back." Si Tuyen smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen nodded. Di Beichen then said, "We originally planned to come back after the assessment, but everyone suggested that we go back to the college, so we came back now." Chapter 17-20. He still remembered the first time he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. Si Tuyen felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and Jin Se looked very similar, especially the charm between their eyebrows. It was because of this that he lost his composure when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang for the first time. Because he still hadn't seen Mu Jin's for a long time, his mind was filled with Mu Jin's appearance. When Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, it really surprised him. At that time, he felt that it was because Bailey Hongzhuang and Mu Jin's looked very similar that he couldn't help but have a good impression of her. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, it was as if he could vaguely see Jin Se back then. Perhaps this was a kind of comfort that God gave him after seeing that he had searched for so many years without any results. After knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang came from a small empire, he gave up on this idea. With Mu Jin's situation back then, even if she wanted to go, it was impossible for her to go to a small empire. The world was big and there were all kinds of strange things. It wasn't impossible for people to look the same. Therefore, at that time, he didn't take this matter to heart. It wasn't until he talked to Di Beichen that they found the problem. All along, he didn't pay too much attention to things that weren't confirmed, but this time, he had a strong premonition that Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter. This premonition was very strange. There was no evidence at all, but his mind seemed to have confirmed this matter. "Little girl Bailey, your results in the assessment competition this time really surprised us. I didn't expect your strength to be so strong." It made many people's jaws drop and brought glory to our Tiangang sect. Si Tuyen's smile was filled with love and admiration. The first place of the assessment competition, such an outstanding cultivator had always been the target of their Tiangang sect's recruitment. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to get the first place of the assessment competition this time. This made Tiangang sect a little proud. Hearing Si Tuyen's praise, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an exquisite and bright smile. Thank you for your praise, sect leader. It's all thanks to sect leader for giving me the opportunity to participate in the assessment. Si Tuyen waved his hand and said with a smile, "You're too humble. This is an opportunity that you fought for yourself. Tiangang sect only provided a platform in this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang could get the opportunity based on her own ability. Bailey Hongzhuang had won first place in the previous assessment. From the looks of it, Bailey Hongzhuang had already displayed her talent when she participated in the competition. It was just that in the competition, Bailey Hongzhuang had displayed her talent even better." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. From the beginning to the end, the sect master had given her a very good impression. After exchanging a few simple pleasantries, Si Tuyen cut to the chase. "Bailey girl, Beichen should have already told you about it, right?" Si Tuyen said slowly. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, "Yes, I already know." "What do you think?" Si Tuyen's smile was warm and loving. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang as if he was looking at a junior that he thought highly of. To him, regardless of whether Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter or not, Bailey Hongzhuang was his disciple's future wife. This would not change. Chapter 1721. Feeling Si Tuyen's kindness, Bailey Hongzhuang's originally nervous mood also relaxed. She raised her head and looked at Si Tuyen in front of her. Si Tuyen's appearance was already very handsome. Even though he had been through a lot, she could still feel his charm. At this moment, Si Tuyen's smile was very kind. The way he looked at her was as if he was looking at a junior that he liked very much. Looking at Si Tuyen like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart also felt warm. Through Si Tuyen's gaze, she could feel that Si Tuyen had really accepted her and Di Beichen. He did not feel the slightest bit of reluctance and accepted it from the bottom of his heart. "If possible, I naturally hope that the sect master's guess is true." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If she was really the sect master's granddaughter, then this was undoubtedly excellent news. This meant that she had found her first family in the Xingxian continent. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's calm appearance, Si Tuyen's smile widened. Among the younger generation of cultivators that he had seen, Bailey Hongzhuang was undoubtedly a very outstanding existence. She was talented, strong, humble and polite. When she did things, there was a trace of calmness and a clear conscience. In Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes, he saw a fearless and determined heart. As a cultivator, such a firm belief was undoubtedly the most important thing. Back then, when he saw that Di Beichen had such a fearless martial heart, he felt very happy. Only with such a heart could a cultivator go further on the path of cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang grew up in such an environment. That kind of adversity did not diminish her fighting spirit. Instead, it made her even more determined. This was not an ordinary kind of rare. In his opinion, very few people would dislike a young person like Bailey Hongzhuang. That was because she was simply too outstanding. "I hope that you don't feel burdened. We're only doing this to verify a guess. No matter what the outcome is, there is no need to worry." Si Tuyen patted Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. His kind smile made her feel at ease. Regardless of whether Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter or not, Bailey Hongzhuang was a junior that he greatly appreciated. Hearing Si Tuyen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. She turned her gaze and saw Di Beichen looking at her with a smile. Such a scene faintly made Bailey Hongzhuang have an illusion, as if they were a family, a very harmonious family. "I understand." Bailey Hongzhuang replied. "If you're ready, we'll begin." What do you think? Si Tuyen asked Bailey Hongzhuang. He believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would be greatly shocked when she found out about this. Thinking about it, Bailey Hongzhuang needed some time to adjust her mental state. He did not want Bailey Hongzhuang to feel pressured because of this. In fact, he was the one who asked Bailey Hongzhuang for help. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and replied, "Okay." The blood test was not complicated. When Bewitching saw that Si Tuyen and Bailey Hongzhuang were about to start the blood test, he immediately walked out and prepared the tools for the blood test. Soon, Bewitching walked back again. In his hand was a black stone that was round and smooth. Chapter 1722. The love testing stone was a stone specially used in the Xingxian continent to test one's blood. Its results were extremely accurate. As long as the two people were relatives, their blood would fuse together after dripping on the love testing stone, and then it would transform into a rich technique. If they were not relatives, then there would be no reaction after dripping on it. There were many cultivators in the Xingxian continent, and the vast majority of them were mercenaries. Mercenaries usually walked in the demonic beast mountain range and often encountered danger. There were countless people who never looked back. Therefore, many children were displaced, and this love testing stone was also an item that was often used. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the love testing stone in front of her. 1,000 years had passed, and this love testing stone was still the same as before. Bewitching placed the love testing stone on the table, and his gaze immediately fell on Si Tuyen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Si Tuyen looked at the love testing stone in front of him, and there was a trace of heaviness and slight nervousness in the depths of his eyes. Ever since he guessed this possibility, his mood was extremely complicated. Perhaps he was worried that the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. In the process of constantly searching over the years, he had always experienced the feeling of disappointment. After being disappointed too many times, he gradually became numb. Some mistakes, once made, would last a lifetime. Sometimes, he was worried about hope. After having hope and then being disappointed, this was undoubtedly a more uncomfortable thing. "I'll go first." Si Tuyen smiled kindly. His gentle and weathered face was full of calmness, and no other expression or fluctuations could be seen. In the next moment, Si Tuyen directly took out a dagger and gently cut it, and a drop of blood fell on the love testing stone. Si Tuyen took a step back and sat on the side, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also took out a dagger and cut her finger, and a round drop of blood suddenly appeared on her finger. Then, the blood dripped on the love testing stone. As the 2 drops of blood fell on the love testing stone, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became a bit more dignified. Si Tuyen, Bewitching, and Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes all focused on the love testing stone, waiting for the final result. The reaction process of the love testing stone took some time, but the 3 people's eyes never moved. Because this result was really important to them. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the 2 drops of blood on the love testing stone. On the pitch-black love testing stone, these 2 drops of blood were particularly obvious. Gradually, these 2 drops of blood were also changing the love testing stone. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 were paying attention to this scene, suddenly, a sound came from outside the door. "Sect leader, the great elder requests an audience." Si Tuyen's secret guard immediately appeared outside Si Tuyen's room and reported the situation to Si Tuyen. Hearing the secret guard's words, Si Tuyen couldn't help but frown. The current situation was not the time to be disturbed. Just by hearing Han Hongyi's name, he already knew the purpose of Han Hongyi's visit. Since Han Shiling's death, Han Hongyi had not come out after returning, and even some of the affairs in the sect were handed over to other elders. He did not say much about this. After all, Han Shiling's death was a great blow to Han Hongyi. Chapter 1723. Si Tuyen, Bewitching, and Bailey Hongzhuang in the room immediately understood Han Hongyi's intention after hearing the report from the secret guard outside the door. Because, except for the possibility of denouncing, there was no other possibility at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was the same as usual. She had already guessed this. As long as she came to Tiangang sect, Han Hongyi would come to trouble her sooner or later, but she didn't expect Han Hongyi to come so quickly. She just arrived at Tiangang sect, and Han Hongyi had already found her immediately. Not only that, Han Hongyi knew that she was here with the sect master, but he still rushed here in such a hurry. Obviously, he didn't care about anything else at all. He just wanted to avenge Han Xiling. Now that the sect master and Bewitching were here, she didn't need to worry about this matter at all. She just needed to let the sect master and Bewitching deal with it. After Bewitching heard the report, his eyes also changed a few times. The Great Elder's speed was really fast. It seems that the Great Elder has been sending people to watch my movements these days. If not, the speed wouldn't be so fast. Let the Great Elder go back first, I have something to deal with now. Si Tuyen was obviously not in the mood to pay attention to Han Hongyi now. Now he put all his thoughts on this stone. This result was too important to him. How could he let others disturb him? Yes. After hearing Si Tuyen's instructions, she immediately responded and then left. With the departure of the secret guard, Bailey Hongzhuang and others' eyes fell on the stone again. Their thoughts were all involved in this, and they just wanted to know the final result. Han Hongyi stood outside Si Tuyen's bedroom. After knowing the news of Bailey Hongzhuang's return, he quickly sorted it out, and then immediately rushed over. At this moment, Han Hongyi had recovered his usual serious appearance. There was no previous loss and sadness, but there was a trace of fierceness and resentment in the depths of his eyes. Originally, he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other disciples would arrive at Tiangang sect on the same day. At that time, it would be a little troublesome for him to confront her. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was the first to return, he naturally had to act immediately. Since he knew that Xi Ling had fallen, he hadn't been able to rest well these days. As long as he closed his eyes, he would think of Xi Ling. As long as Hongzhuang was not punished, he would not be able to rest for a day. First Elder, the sect master is not free right now. Please go back first. The secret guard appeared in front of Han Hongyi and said expressionlessly. Han Hongyi, who was originally thinking about how to confront Bailey Hongzhuang, heard the secret guard's words and his face instantly turned ugly. How is this possible? There was nothing between the sovereign and Bailey Hongzhuang that he needed to understand, so how could he not have time now? In Han Hongyi's view, this was an excuse for the sovereign to protect Bailey Hongzhuang. He was very clear that a fallen cultivator had no meaning. Even if Xi Ling's status in Tiangang sect was unusual, but since the moment she fell, everything before had no meaning. However, now when this scene really happened in front of him, he still had an unspeakable pain. How could the sovereign be like this? Chapter 1724. Seeing Great Elder's stubborn look, the shadow guard could not help but frown and said, "The sect leader doesn't have time now. Great Elder, it's better for you to leave." Although it was the same meaning, the shadow guard's words carried a hint of warning. No one had ever dared to go against the sect leader's orders. Now that Great Elder had made such a request, wasn't he a little ignorant of his status? "I don't care about anything else, I want to see the sect leader now." Han Hongyi was stubborn. He believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was now in the sect leader's bedroom, laughing at him. If he left just like that, how could he deal with Bailey Hongzhuang in the future? In the next moment, Han Hongyi rushed into the bedroom without a care. He must see Bailey Hongzhuang in front of the sect leader. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had made him experience the feeling of falling into hell, he would not let Bailey Hongzhuang have it easy either. Seeing that Han Hongyi intended to barge into the sect leader's bedroom, the shadow guard's face suddenly filled with a cold intent. As the sect master's secret guards, they usually stayed near the sleeping quarters. As long as they were around, no one would dare to act presumptuously. They did not expect that Great Elder, who was also one of the representatives of Tiangang sect, would be so rude today and dare to defy the sect leader's orders. Great Elder, if you take another step forward, don't blame us for taking action. As the voice of this secret guard fell, almost at the same time, the other 3 secret guards appeared from the corner of the palace and stood in a row in front of the first elder. Whenever the sect leader did not want to be disturbed, they would not let anyone appear in front of the sect leader. This was their mission. No matter who it was, as long as they broke the rules, they would not hesitate to take action. The first elder's face instantly darkened when he saw the aggressive secret guard in front of him. He knew how powerful the sect leader's shadow guards were, but he did not expect that one day, these shadow guards would actually come to deal with him. Go and report to the sect leader again. I want to see him now. Han Hongyi thought for a moment and resisted the urge to take action as he said to the shadow guards. Hearing this, the few secret guards looked at each other with complicated feelings. The Great Elder's status in Tiangang sect was not low, and today's situation was also for a reason. If he made a move like this, he was afraid that it would affect the relationship between the sect leader and the Great Elder. After thinking about this, a shadow guard said, "Then, I'll go and pass the message again. If the result is still the same, Great Elder shouldn't persist." Han Hongyi looked at the secret guard with a complicated expression. He neither nodded nor shook his head. Only he knew in his heart that no matter what, he had to see the sovereign today. He wanted to know the truth from Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth. If he didn't do this, he wouldn't have the face to face Xi Ling. That secret guard immediately walked to the back. Today's matter was really troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others fixed their gazes on the love-testing stone. After a period of time, the love-testing stone gradually began to change. Soon, they would be able to know the final result. The bright red blood beads slowly merged into the love-testing stone. The black stone was gradually dyed with a bright red color, revealing a bit of strangeness and mystery. Chapter 1725. The atmosphere in the room became more and more dignified. Even Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 wanted to make the atmosphere less tense, but at this critical moment, they had to admit that they were nervous. The blood merged into the stone bit by bit. When the blood completely merged into the stone, it would be the time when the result would be revealed. The 3 gazes were focused and nervous. In another minute, they would know the result. However, at this moment, the secret guard's voice sounded again outside the door. "Sect Master, Great Elder asked to see you." His attitude was extremely stubborn. We stopped him but he didn't want to leave. The secret guard's mood was also very perturbed. Usually, they would only carry out the sect master's orders and would not ask a second time. However, Great Elder's position in Tiangang sect was really different. After thinking about it again and again, they decided to ask. Situ Yen put all his attention on the stone at this moment. Suddenly being disturbed again, his eyes became more and more serene. "Let him leave." The low and majestic voice was full of warning and determination. Situ Yan's words were unusually concise. Just from Situ Yan's words, everyone could already feel that Situ Yan was angry. Regardless of the importance of the current situation, Great Elder dared to question the sect master's order. This was already extremely disrespectful. After hearing Situ Yan's words, the secret guard outside the door couldn't help but shudder and regret in his heart. If he knew that the sect master had such an attitude, he wouldn't have asked the sect master a second time. They had followed the sect master for many years. Just by listening to the sect master's voice, they already understood the sect master's thoughts. At this moment, the sect master was already angry. They were afraid that after the sect master was done, they would also be punished. In the next moment, the secret guard quickly left. They had to let Great Elder go back quickly. With the departure of the secret guard, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that Great Elder was really stubborn this time. He would rather defy the sect master's order to come and see them. From this action, they could see Great Elder's attitude. However, the three people in the room didn't care too much about this matter. Their eyes fell on the stone again. As the blood was gradually absorbed by the love-testing stone, the entire stone turned black, as if nothing had happened. Immediately after, a faint golden light gradually appeared on the love-testing stone. When the first golden light appeared, the minds of the three people present shook. Their eyes were fixed on the golden light, and they were filled with surprise and disbelief. After the golden light appeared, the golden light became brighter and brighter, and the entire stone turned into a dazzling golden color. After seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two couldn't help but look at each other, and in their minds, they kept thinking about a sentence. Really? It's actually true. Bailey Hongzhuang and Situ. Even though they didn't have any evidence before, after alienating themselves, they only felt that there were endless possibilities. Was Great Elder by? There was no need to doubt this point. Chapter 1726. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had already guessed this result, her heart was still filled with shock at this moment. The sect master was actually her grandfather. If it was before, this was something that she would never have thought of. The unfavored daughter of a small dynasty's general was actually the granddaughter of the dignified Tiangang sect master. Once this news was spread out, who knew how many people would be stunned? Initially, she only thought that she had transmigrated into a useless young lady of a general's residence. Now, as she investigated her background bit by bit, she realized that her background was actually so amazing. Compared to before, this was simply a completely different life. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was filled with shock. So, her mother was the sect master and her grandmother's daughter. After Bewitching confirmed this result, he was first pleasantly surprised. Later on, he felt that this should be the arrangement of the heavens. Back then, it was his master who brought him back to Tiangang sect in swaddling clothes. Since then, he had been living in Tiangang sect. Later on, his master went out to look for his master's wife, and he was forced to leave Tiangang sect. He never thought that he would actually find his master's granddaughter after leaving. Was this not fate? If he did not go to Fengbo and fell in love with Hongzhuang, then he would not have seen the jade pendant on Hongzhuang's neck and would not have known of Hongzhuang's identity. In this way, this secret might be buried forever. His master might not know that his daughter was suffering and his granddaughter was in Fengbo for the rest of his life. Among the three of them, Situ Yan was the most shocked. Previously, when Bewitching told him about this possibility, he still felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. After all, this was something that he had never thought of before. For so many years, he had always thought that he was alone. Perhaps the heavens wanted to punish him for the mistake he had made back then, so he could not find any trace of Jinsei after so many years of searching. He could only spend the rest of his life alone. The only thing that the heavens did for him was to let him find Bewitching and inherit his mantle. Later on, until now, he realized that he was not alone at all. He had a daughter and a granddaughter. After Jinsei left, she gave birth to a daughter for him and gave her the name they had both chosen. Thinking of this, Situ Yan's heart trembled. Even though he had done so many wrong things in the past, and hurt Jinsei to the core, Jinsei still named their daughter Ling Bing. However, after a brief moment of joy, Situ Yan's face turned even uglier. He was really an old fool. He had always prided himself on his intelligence. At such a young age, he was able to make a name for himself in the Xingxian continent. After taking over Tiangang sect for so long, Tiangang sect had become more and more powerful in his hands. However, the truth was that he had lived too muddle-headed his entire life. He should have known. If he had paid more attention back then, he would have known that Lan Yunxiao's wife was called Mu Lingbing. If he had confirmed this back then, things wouldn't have turned out like this. His daughter and granddaughter had suffered so much, but he didn't know about it until now. Thinking of this, Si Tu-yen was filled with regret. He let Jin Se down and didn't take good care of their daughter. Chapter 1727. Si Tu-yen's mind was filled with thoughts. Every time he thought of how Mu Lingbing had suffered all these years and how she had been imprisoned by the Yu family, Si Tu-yen's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Actually, Mu Lingbing had never done anything wrong. He was the one who had done wrong. However, his daughter's life had been ruined because of him. Now, he was certain that Yu Siqing had done all of this on purpose. Yu Siqing knew that Mu Lingbing was his and Jin Se's daughter. That was why she had been so ruthless towards Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, such a thing wouldn't have happened. To Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang, all of this was an undeserved calamity. Si Tu-yen's heart felt like it was being pierced by needles. His hatred towards Yu Siqing had reached its peak. This woman was too despicable and sinister. Back then, it wasn't enough that she had separated him from Jin Se. Now, she had done such a thing to Mu Lingbing and Bailey Hongzhuang. He didn't know how Yu Siqing had tortured Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao all these years when they had been imprisoned in the Yu family. Or perhaps, the reason why he hadn't been able to find any trace of Jin Se all these years was because of Yu Siqing. Thinking of this, Si Tu-yen's hands slowly clenched into fists under his sleeves. His veins bulged, showing how strong he was. If he didn't kill Yu Siqing, he would never be able to vent the hatred in his heart. When Di Beichen saw that Si Tu-yen had sunk into a daze after seeing the changes in the love-testing stone, he couldn't help but call out, "Master." Listening to Di Beichen's reminder, Si Tu-yen returned to his senses. His eyes, which had always been cold and hard, were now bloodshot. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes were full of complexity. Hongzhuang, Si Tu-yen changed the way he addressed Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, the way he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang was different from before. Hongzhuang was his relative, Si Tu-yen's granddaughter. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look at Si Tu-yen with a complicated expression. Si Tu-yen was actually her grandfather. However, she could not bring herself to call him that at this moment. After all, for so many years, she had never had a grandfather in her life. Now that he had suddenly appeared, she couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Si Tu-yen's voice was dry and hoarse. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a complicated and guilty gaze. "Hongzhuang, grandfather has let you down." Si Tu-yen's eyes were filled with loneliness and guilt. All these years, he had always boasted that he was magnanimous. Other than letting down Jin Se, he had never let down anyone else in the world. However, he never thought that Hongzhuang would suffer for so many years because of him. The Rainbow Divine Pearl was forcefully taken away from her when she was still a baby, and she almost lost her life. Later on, she stubbornly survived, but her parents were not by her side. She had accidentally become the young miss of the general's mansion, but had been ridiculed as a good-for-nothing who couldn't cultivate since she was young and bullied by everyone. The source of all the suffering that Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered was because of him. Listening to Si Tu-yen's words that were filled with guilt and complexity, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart softened. She only felt that Si Tu-yen had aged a lot the moment he found out the truth. His bright black eyes were stained with thick vicissitudes of life. For someone like Si Tu-yen to suddenly suffer such a big blow, his heart must be extremely complicated. Chapter 1728. Did she hate him? Bailey Hongzhuang did not hate him at all. That was because she knew that the man in front of her hated her to the core. It was not that Si Tu-yen was unwilling to take responsibility. It was all because of a misunderstanding back then and Yu Siqing's despicable methods that led to the current situation. He had been kept in the dark. If he had known about all this, he would have taken action long ago. There was no need for anyone to blame him. Si Tu-yen's heart was filled with regret. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt sympathy and heartache for Si Tu-yen. None of this was what Si Tuyen wanted to see. Back then, he should not have known a woman like Yu Siqing who was so unscrupulous. It was because of Yu Siqing's existence that Si Tuyen had regretted for most of his life. Now, this guilt had surpassed all the regrets in the past. Perhaps even a hero like Si Tuyen would not be able to take it when he found out about all this. Grandfather, Bailey Hongzhuang paused for a moment before she called out to him. She did not dislike this form of address, and it was not as difficult as she had thought it would be. This is not your fault. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel the deep sorrow that Si Tuyen was feeling from the bottom of his heart. She only hoped that Si Tuyen would not be immersed in this sorrow. This was because none of them wanted to see this happen. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's consolation did not have any effect. Si Tuyen was still depressed and depressed. It's my fault. It's all my fault. If it wasn't for my stupidity back then, how could so many things have happened? I've let you down, let your mother down, let your grandmother down. Si Tuyen felt that he had not let down any of the three most important women in his life. Grandfather, you didn't want this to happen either. Yu Siqing was the cause of all this. A fierce light flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black phoenix eyes. She hated Yu Siqing to the extreme. All the suffering that they were going through now was because of Yu Siqing. All these years, this perverted woman had simply taken pleasure in torturing them. She simply could not imagine just how perverted this woman was. Back then, because of Yu Siqing's interference, Grandma had already decided to leave. From that moment on, Grandma had already asked her to admit defeat. Even so, Yu Siqing wasn't willing to let it go. She began to lay her hands on her mother and her. Even if her grandmother and Yu Siqing fell in love with the same man, everything should have ended after her grandmother left. After all, Yu Siqing and her grandmother were good friends at that time. As a good friend, how could he be so heartless to do such a cruel thing? In Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, Yu Siqing could no longer be called a person. She was a poisonous snake. Seeing this, Bewitching couldn't help but say, Master, Hongzhuang is right. None of this is what you wanted to see. It's not your fault. All of this was deliberately arranged by Yu Siqing. She wants you to regret it for the rest of your life. Bewitching felt that Yu Siqing wanted to ruin everything because she couldn't get what she wanted. Yu Siqing wanted his master to regret it for the rest of his life. Seeing his master in pain seemed to be the only way to lessen Yu Siqing's pain. Chapter 1729. Outside the bedroom. The secret guard immediately rushed back after receiving Si Tuyen's order. His attitude became colder than before. The sect master's attitude was very obvious. No matter what, he would not see Han Hongyi now. Great Elder, the sect master is not free. You should go back. The secret guard's voice was slightly cold. It was because of Han Hongyi's stubbornness that he angered the sect master just now. Hearing the secret guard's answer, Han Hongyi's face became more and more ugly. He had already expressed his attitude so clearly, but the sect master still chose to let him leave. This was not giving him face. No matter what, he was the Tiangang sect's great elder. For so many years in Tiangang sect, he had worked hard even if he did not make any contributions. However, the sect master now wholeheartedly protected Bailey Hongzhuang and completely ignored him. This was a bit too much. There were many people besides him who saw him coming to the sect master's bedroom. If he went back like this, then where would he put his face in Tiangang sect in the future? Thinking of this, Han Hongyi felt more and more that he could not leave like this. If he left like this today, then Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not take him seriously in the future. He would not let this happen. However, Han Hongyi did not know that the sect master really did not have time to care about him. In the next moment, Han Hongyi walked into the bedroom. Since the sect master did not want to see him, then he would see the sect master. Seeing that Han Hongyi did not listen to the advice and directly rushed into the bedroom, the secret guard's face became extremely ugly. For so many years, there had never been a situation where someone dared to directly rush into the sect master's bedroom. This Han Hongyi was really the first person in so many years. Great Elder, you are forcing us to take action by doing this. The secret guard immediately blocked in front of Han Hongyi and said coldly. Han Hongyi also looked at the secret guard in front of him coldly. Take action then. I want to see how strong you secret guards are. As the Tiangang sect's great elder, his strength was also not to be underestimated. Han Hongyi's figure swept, and his whole person turned into a rainbow light and rushed into the bedroom quickly. The speed of the shadow guards was also extremely fast. After knowing that Han Hongyi was serious, they also quickly rushed up. Bang! Bang bang! Essence energy swiftly surged. Han Hongyi and the hidden guards also directly began exchanging blows. Regardless of whether it was Han Hongyi or the shadow guards, they were all very powerful. Therefore, they were evenly matched when they fought. Several figures were entangled together. Han Hongyi kept moving forward, wanting to enter the palace. The 4 secret guards stood firmly in front of Han Hongyi. No matter what, they would not let Han Hongyi enter. However, as they exchanged blows, the 4 secret guards' emotions were extremely complicated. If they really injured Han Hongyi, it wouldn't be too appropriate. The strength of Han Hongyi and the shadow guard was so strong, the momentum of this fight was naturally very vast. The yuan power undulations continued to spread out as waves of energy ripples quietly spread out. The cultivators of Tiangang sect were most familiar with this energy fluctuation. Every time they felt such a fluctuation, it meant that there was a conflict between cultivators. Every time such a situation occurred, they could not help but go and investigate. They wanted to know which cultivator had caused the conflict. Chapter 1730. I don't know where they are fighting again, but there is a good show to watch. I think the direction of this fluctuation seems to be the sect master's bedroom. A disciple said in surprise. Don't talk nonsense, how can there be a fight in the sect master's bedroom? Unless you don't want to stay in Tiangang's sect. His friend's face stopped him from speaking. The sect master was the supreme existence in Tiangang sect, and no one could be disrespectful to the sect master. Even in the entire Tiangang sect, no one dared to find trouble in the sect master's bedroom, except when the sect master taught the young sect master cultivation. However, the young sect master and the sect master had not fought for a long time, and such a thing should not happen. What I said is true. If you don't believe it, you can sense it. This direction is the sect master's bedroom. The cultivator couldn't help but emphasize. He was not disrespectful to the sect master, but this was the real situation. The sect master's bedroom was originally a very special existence in Tiangang sect. There were no other buildings around the palace master's bedroom. If there was no important matter on weekdays, ordinary cultivators would not go there at all. Listening to the words of this cultivator, the disciples of Tiangang sect couldn't help but sense it carefully. With this perception, everyone confirmed that what the cultivator said was not wrong. The fluctuations of the battle were indeed from the direction of the sect master's bedroom. I noticed that the great elder went to the sect master's bedroom. Bailey Hongzhuang and the young sect master are also in the palace master's bedroom. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and the great elder are fighting? It shouldn't be. With the strength of the great elder, if he fights with Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely lose. Everyone nodded. With the young sect master's dedication to Bailey Hongzhuang, it was absolutely impossible to let the great elder bully Bailey Hongzhuang. I saw that the great elder went to the sect master's bedroom aggressively. Han Shiling's death, the great elder must have remembered all the hatred on Bailey Hongzhuang. It's to be expected that there will be a conflict, but I wonder who will have the upper hand in the end? The cultivators of Tiangang sect were constantly discussing. This matter was now the most lively in Tiangang sect. The group of cultivators looked in the direction of the sect leader's chamber. If it weren't for the fact that they weren't going to set foot in the sect leader's chamber, they would have definitely gone to check it out. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing were cultivating in the room. When they suddenly heard such an intense battle, they couldn't help but withdraw from their cultivation state. A hint of surprise appeared in their eyes. According to their judgment, such a fierce battle could not have been caused by Bailey Hongzhuang. Regardless of whether it was the sect master or the young sect master, they would not make a move under such circumstances. Hence, they were certain that the ones who were making a move were the sect master and great elder's secret guards. After confirming this, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing immediately headed to the sect master's bedroom. Previously, they had already expected that Bailey Hongzhuang would encounter trouble when she returned, but they did not expect it to happen so quickly. The great elder's actions were really quick this time. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Si Tuyen were immersed in the truth. The three of them were feeling very complicated. It would take some time for them to distance themselves from all this. Chapter 1731. Di Beichen's pitch-black eyes were filled with astonishment. His long, narrow eyebrows furrowed slightly. Could it be that the great elder is so stubborn? Even though he had already expected that the great elder would not let the matter of Han Shiling's death slide so easily, the great elder's persistence at this moment was still beyond his expectations. Moreover, they really had something to discuss now, but the great elder had disobeyed them in public. It was really too much. Bailey Hongzhuang looked out of the room thoughtfully. She could feel the intensity of the battle from the energy fluctuations. It could be seen how much the great elder hated her to the bone. Si Tuyen also frowned. Originally, he only wanted to apologize to Hongzhuang properly. After all, the suffering that Hongzhuang had endured for so many years was all because of him. As her grandfather, he had not taken care of Hongzhuang for so many years. He had also made up his mind that he would not let Hongzhuang suffer any grievances in the future. However, now that the first elder had done something so overboard, the anger in his heart instantly rose. Previously, the great elder had disturbed him time and time again, which had already made him very unhappy. Now, he actually dared to make a move. It seemed that he had been too lenient with Han Hengyi these days. That was why Han Hengyi had gone from bad to worse. In the next moment, Si Tuyen directly stood up and glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. He said, "Let's go out and take a look." With the situation outside the room, it was naturally inappropriate for them to continue talking. He wanted to see what exactly Han Hengyi wanted to do. As Si Tuyen's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen both nodded. Now that things had turned out this way, they had no choice but to go out and take a look. Creak. Si Tuyen opened the door and took the lead to walk out. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen followed closely behind. They could feel the dissatisfaction and anger in Si Tuyen's heart. Di Beichen gave Bailey Hongzhuang a reassuring look. The current Han Hengyi could no longer stir up any waves. As the granddaughter of Master, Hongzhuang's status in Tiangang's sect could be imagined. Even if the great elder wanted to find trouble with Hongzhuang, it was impossible. Today, great elder was looking for trouble. Perhaps the one who would suffer in the end would be great elder himself. He had grown up with his master since he was a child, so he knew his master's temperament very well. Master had always been a protective person, not to mention that Hongzhuang was Master's granddaughter. Han Hengyi and the 4 secret guards continued to fight. He had to admit that these secret guards were really powerful. Even with his strength, he was unable to break through the defense of these secret guards. They could only tangle with each other, and no one could do anything to the other. He could feel that the 4 shadow guards didn't want to hurt him, so they didn't attack him ruthlessly. Similarly, he didn't attack them ruthlessly. From the beginning to the end, he had never thought of hurting these secret guards to rush in. This was because once he hurt these secret guards, his relationship with the sect leader would be damaged. This was obviously not appropriate. Therefore, his idea was to use the fluctuations of the battle to attract the sect leader and the rest. He didn't believe that under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang could still hide in the bedroom and not come out. He wanted to let Bailey Hongzhuang know that his methods weren't weak either. Stop. Chapter 1732. As the voice fell, Han Hongyi and the secret guards immediately stopped their attacks and their gazes fell on Si Tu Yan, who was behind them. Seeing Si Tu Yan's appearance, Han Hongyi couldn't help but feel elated. It seemed that he was right. The sect master had indeed come out. When Han Hongyi saw Bailey Hongzhuang standing behind Si Tu Yan, the smile in his eyes deepened. He knew that under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't possibly keep hiding in the sect master's bedroom and not come out. As the great elder of Tiangang sect, his identity, status, and influence were still not something that Bailey Hongzhuang could compare to. Although Shi Ling was no longer around, it was still uncertain who the young sect master's wife would be. At least, before Bailey Hongzhuang and the young sect master got married, his status was still higher than Bailey Hongzhuang. Great Elder, what are you doing? Si Tu Yan's face was gloomy. The Great Elder had repeatedly ignored his orders and this had already caused him to be extremely dissatisfied. Moreover, the matter earlier was extremely important to him but the Great Elder kept obstructing him. It was imaginable how terrible his mood was. Hearing Si Tu Yan's first sentence, Han Hongyi's heart couldn't help but sink. Could it be that the sect master was already angry? Thinking of this, Han Hongyi couldn't help but feel perturbed. When Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing arrived and saw this scene, their feelings were extremely complicated. It seemed that the situation was as they had expected. Previously, it was the Great Elder and the secret guards who had taken action. Noticing Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's arrival, Han Hongyi's heart calmed down a little. He knew that Di Beichen would definitely stand on Bailey Hongzhuang's side but at least Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing were still relatively fair. Sect Master, I think there must be a conspiracy behind Shi Ling's death in the assessment competition. I'm afraid that it's related to Bailey Hongzhuang. Han Hongyi pointed at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes filled with anger and agitation. He must make Bailey Hongzhuang pay the price. In the face of Han Hongyi's accusation, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression remained the same. Han Shiling was dead, and there was no proof. No matter what Han Hongyi said, there was no need for her to answer this question. However, Si Tuyen did not answer Han Hongyi's question. Instead, he said gloomily, I told you to go back first. Why didn't you go back? Instead, you attacked me here. Don't tell me, you don't put me, the sect master, in your eyes? Si Tuyen's voice was filled with majesty and warning. His voice exploded in Han Hongyi's ears. As the sect master of Tiangang sect, this kind of thing had never happened in front of his palace. However, the person who caused this was actually the first elder. Following Si Tuyen's words, Han Hongyi's face instantly turned pale, and he immediately knelt down. He could feel the anger and rebuke in Si Tuyen's words. Initially, he only wanted to use this method to force Bailey Hongzhuang out but he never thought that the sect master would be so serious about it. After seeing the sect master like this, he suddenly regretted his previous actions. He seemed to have been too reckless. This situation was different from what he had imagined. This kind of thing originally depended on the sect master's attitude. If the sect master stood on his side, then this matter would naturally be nothing. Chapter 1733. After hearing Si Tu Yan's questioning words, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at Han Hongyi with complicated gazes. Great Elder's actions today were too impulsive. He acted so rashly and did not even listen to the sect master's orders. This was too much. Even though they had just arrived, they could feel the sect master's anger. Great Elder had really angered the sect master today. They had not seen the sect master angry for a long time. Once the sect master was angry, this matter must be extremely serious. I don't dare. Han Hongyi's face was pale and he quickly explained that he did not have any thoughts of disregarding the sect master. What kind of existence was the sect master? He had always respected the sect master very much and did not dare to have the slightest intention of disobeying. However, he really could not understand the situation today. Even if the sect master was protecting Bailey Hongzhuang, he was unwilling to accept the fact that he had caused such a big commotion. The sect master should not be so angry. Previously, because of Shi Ling's death, he had been in a bad mood. These days, he had not been in charge of the sect's affairs and the sect master had never blamed him. However, now he only wanted to confront Bailey Hongzhuang and the sect master was so angry. It was too strange. Han Hongyi did not know that he had just disturbed Si Tu-yen and Bailey Hongzhuang's reunion. After so many years, it was the first time Si Tu-yen had seen his granddaughter, but Han Hongyi had repeatedly disturbed him. One could imagine the anger in his heart. You don't dare. Si Tu-yen's eyes were gloomy. If you don't dare, what are you doing now? Si Tu-yen's dignified face was filled with sullen anger like a roaring tiger. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, as if he could directly see through Si Tu-yen's heart. Listening to Si Tu-yen's rebuke and angry words, Han Hongyi could not help but tremble. He could not understand what the sect master was thinking. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing also did not understand. The sect master today was obviously different from usual. Could it be that things were not so simple? Di Beichen quietly watched the scene in front of him. He understood the significance of today's reunion to his master. However, to be disturbed by the first elder again and again at such a time, anyone would be infuriated. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly by the side. Han Hongyi really dug his own grave. She was very happy that she could be reunited with her grandfather, but this atmosphere was completely destroyed by Han Hongyi. Han Hongyi also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze and the anger in his heart surged up. It was because of the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang that he had fallen into such a situation. However, now Bailey Hongzhuang actually dared to stand behind the sovereign and look at him arrogantly. Did she really think that he had no other way? Thinking of this, Han Hongyi immediately said, "Sect leader, Shi Ling's death must have something to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. You watched Shi Ling grow up, could it be that you want Shi Ling to die so unjustly? You are so protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. I just want to confront Bailey Hongzhuang face to face, but you don't let me see her at all. What's wrong with me doing this?" Han Hongyi said with certainty. When he thought of the scene of Han Shiling's death, his heart ached. Chapter 1734. When Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing heard Han Hongyi's words, they finally understood what was going on. However, after knowing everything, the two of them felt even more helpless. Han Shiling had already fallen in the assessment competition. This had nothing to do with Bailey Hongzhuang at all. Even if Han Shiling had really died in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands, that was because Han Shiling was not powerful enough. Everyone knew that the Great Elder had selfish motives for sending Han Shiling into the assessment competition. However, the current situation was completely different from what the Great Elder had imagined. The Great Elder had played the pity card. They could not help but feel helpless. As an influential figure in the sect, the Great Elder's actions were rather unreasonable. However, they did not have any evidence to prove the Great Elder's selfish motives back then. Hence, they could only keep their mouths shut. Si Tuyen stared coldly at Han Hongyi. Ever since he had found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter, his heart had been filled with a thick sense of guilt. He hated himself for not taking good care of Hongzhuang back then and causing her to suffer so much injustice. However, the Great Elder was now accusing his granddaughter. "Great Elder, Han Shiling had fallen in the assessment competition and I can understand that you're very sad. However, if you insist on linking this matter to Bailey Hongzhuang, isn't this too far-fetched? The assessment competition is a place where power speaks. If every cultivator's relatives were to question someone like you, wouldn't the assessment competition be a mess? As an elder, you should act like one. Si Tuyen's tone was very heavy and his words were filled with warning. He had long seen through Han Hengyi's selfish motives. He had not directly pointed it out because he was giving Han Hengyi face. This was because Han Hengyi had already suffered the consequences of his own actions. As long as he did not continue to be ignorant, Si Tuyen was not willing to be merciless on account of his years of hard work and contributions. However, Han Hengyi clearly did not realize this. On the contrary, he was becoming more and more overboard. Han Hengyi looked at Si Tuyen in shock. Si Tuyen's answer was completely out of his expectations. He had always thought that no matter what, the sect master would be considerate of him in this matter. However, the sect master's words clearly didn't leave him any face. He wanted to refute, but Si Tuyen's words made it impossible for him to refute. Everything he said was the truth. He understood that once he entered the competition, life and death would depend on his own ability. But when this happened to him, he couldn't accept it. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at each other. They both understood that everything the sect leader said was the truth. What the great elder did today was a big mistake. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Han Hengyi coldly. She was filled with disgust towards the great elder. For an elder to do such a thing, this already proved that Han Hengyi was not kind at all. Now that he'd fallen into such a situation, it was entirely his own doing, and he simply deserved it. Sect leader. You're too protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. Han Hengyi flew into a rage out of humiliation. His eyes were bloodshot as he looked at Si Tuyen and Bailey Hongzhuang with resentment. Even if Shi Ling is dead and has no value, you protecting Bailey Hongzhuang like this is too disappointing. Chapter 1735. Seeing that Han Hengyi not only didn't admit his mistake, but also accused him with righteous words, Si Tuyen's face also changed from the initial anger to gloominess and finally silence. He had already said so much, but Han Hengyi still didn't repent. He was really stupid. Han Hengyi. As the great elder of Tiangang sect, you can't distinguish right from wrong. You are narrow-minded. Today, you openly disobeyed my orders and intended to break into my bedroom. You should be very clear about the consequences of these crimes. Go back and reflect on your mistakes. Without my permission, you are not allowed to appear anywhere in Tiangang's sect until you figure it out. As soon as he said that, Si Tuyen turned around. At this point, he had nothing to say to Han Hengyi. In fact, Han Hengyi was clear about all this, but Han Hengyi himself didn't want to believe it. In this way, no matter what he said, it was useless. It was better to let him stay in the room and reflect on his mistakes. Judging from Han Hengyi's current state, if Heng Zhuang was cultivating in Tiangang sect, Han Hengyi might try his best to deal with Heng Zhuang. In the past, he was not by Heng Zhuang's side, so Heng Zhuang suffered so much. Now that Heng Zhuang was by his side, he definitely couldn't let Heng Zhuang suffer any grievances. He wouldn't let any potential danger appear by Heng Zhuang's side, and the great elder was one of these potential dangers. Di Beichen glanced at Han Hengyi faintly. The reason why the great elder fell to this point was all because of Han Hengyi's self-directed performance. He also felt very helpless. If the great elder didn't have bad intentions from the beginning, then he wouldn't fall into this situation. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen followed behind Si Tuyen and walked slowly toward the bedroom. Since things had come to this point, they didn't need to say anything. Di Beichen understood that the reason why his master made such a decision was to protect Heng Zhuang. The great elder's power in Tiangang sect was not small. Even if he protected Heng Zhuang everywhere, if the great elder deliberately wanted to obstruct Heng Zhuang when she was cultivating, then they might not be able to take care of it. Now that the great leader was punished and confined, it was impossible for him to come out in a short time. He could also rest assured. Han Hengyi was dumbfounded after seeing Si Tuyen leave like this. The sect master actually had such an attitude? As the great elder, he had already spoken to this extent. No matter what, the sect master should be moved. At the very least, he would not be so cold-hearted. However, the supreme headmaster remained unmoved. He did not react at all and allowed him to leave just like that. Face the wall and reflect on one's mistakes. As the great elder of Tiangang's sect, he actually had to reflect on his own. Once this news spread out, it was simply a complete joke. However, the facts that happened in front of him clearly reminded him that everything was like this. In the sect master's heart, his weight was actually not as important as Bailey Hongzhuang, who had just arrived. What kind of irony was this? It was simply a great shame. Thinking of this, a strong unwillingness in Han Hongyi's heart screamed crazily. He was not reconciled. Han Hongyi immediately stood up. He couldn't agree to such a treatment. Just when Han Hongyi stood up and showed a dissatisfied attitude, the secret guards had already taken action immediately. Chapter 1736. What are you doing? Han Hongyi saw a group of shadow guards suddenly appear in front of him. It was obvious that they wanted to force him to go back. His expression could not help but turn extremely ugly. Great Elder, please go back. The shadow guards' attitudes were cold and their voices did not contain the slightest bit of warmth. Previously, they still had some scruples because of the Great Elder's identity. However, now that the sect leader had given the order, they no longer needed to be courteous. Sensing the shadow guard's attitude, Han Hongyi's face turned ashen. How many years has it been since he received such treatment? The sect leader would not treat me like this. Han Hongyi's voice was stubborn and cold. He absolutely could not accept such a punishment. As he spoke, Han Hongyi immediately wanted to chase after the sect leader. He did not believe it. He did not believe everything that was happening before his eyes. After seeing that Han Hongyi was still unwilling to give up, the shadow guards no longer considered Han Hongyi's thoughts. They immediately grabbed Han Hongyi's arms and brought him back. In their opinion, the Great Elder today was simply unreasonable. Since the Great Elder did not listen to their advice, they had no other choice. Suddenly being restrained by the shadow guards, Han Hongyi could not help but struggle. Let go of me. I'm the Great Elder of Tiangang's sect. However, the shadow guards did not care about what the first elder had said. Their current mission was to bring the Great Elder back to his residence and not let him continue to cause trouble here. Let go of me. I can walk on my own. After struggling to no avail, Han Hongyi could not help but speak up. No matter what, he was the Great Elder of Tiangang's sect. If the disciples of the sect saw him like this, where would his face go? However, after Han Hongyi's repeated struggles, the shadow guards did not believe the Great Elder's words at all. If they allowed the Great Elder to disturb the sect leader, then they really deserved to die 1,000 deaths. Han Hongyi's gaze could not help but fall on Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing. However, faced with such a situation, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing also felt extremely helpless. In fact, when they saw the Great Elder's lack of grace, they were already very helpless. They could not do anything now because the Great Elder's decision was wrong to begin with. If they spoke now, they would undoubtedly anger the sect leader. After seeing that Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing had no intention of helping him, Han Hongyi's expression became especially ugly. From the looks of it, this situation could not be changed. After Han Hongyi disappeared from sight, Qin Ai said, "First Elder, your actions this time are really unwise. You actually said such words." Han Shiling's death was a huge blow to the First Elder, so the First Elder's actions are abnormal. However, the reasons that Great Elder came up with are all meaningless. It only shows that he is narrow-minded. Gu Jingqing shook his head. He didn't know what to say about the First Elder's current state. The Great Elder was too unwise. In comparison, he had a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang. At that time, Bailey Hongzhuang did not need to participate in the assessment competition. After all, there was the young sect master. Bailey Hongzhuang had no problem staying in Tiangang sect as the young sect master's wife. However, due to Han Xiling and the others' ridicule and sarcasm, Bailey Hongzhuang finally decided to use her own strength to shut everyone up. Chapter 1737. Even though he had not met Bailey Hongzhuang many times, from what he had understood in this short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely stronger than many other women. He felt that the young sect master's judgment had never been wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang was better than Han Xiling and was more suitable to be the young sect master's wife. Other than those who did not like Bailey Hongzhuang to begin with, he believed that most of the cultivators who knew Bailey Hongzhuang would like her more and more after getting to know Bailey Hongzhuang. Because Bailey Hongzhuang's hard work and seriousness were filled with endless charm. When he had first seen Bailey Hongzhuang, he could not help but be stunned by Bailey Hongzhuang's countenance as a flower and as the moon. However, after interacting with her for such a long time, what made him even more stunned was Bailey Hongzhuang's seriousness and hard work. As a cultivator from a small empire, Bailey Hongzhuang had to endure much more pressure than Han Xiling to participate in the assessment competition. Furthermore, he was well aware of the difference in power between Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling. Even with such a difference in power, Bailey Hongzhuang had still managed to defeat Han Xiling. This proved Bailey Hongzhuang's power and battle power. A cultivator's cultivation level was high, but it did not mean that their battle power was strong. This point could be deduced from Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling's situation. He did not know why the sect master was so protective of Bailey Hongzhuang, but he felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Great Elder has really suffered a double loss this time. I'm afraid that he will not be able to recover for a period of time. Qin Sha sighed. Qin Ai sighed faintly. He had never imagined that the Great Elder would experience such a scene. It was truly unexpected. The sect master's reaction today is a little unusual. I haven't seen the sect master so angry in a long time. Why don't we go in and take a look? Gu Jingqing asked. Since such a thing had happened, even if the sect master really had something important to discuss with the young sect master, he would not continue the discussion. Hearing this, Qin Ai thought for a moment, then nodded, okay. Not long after Han Hongyi was taken away, the cultivators of Tiangang sect saw this scene and their faces were filled with shock. Oh my God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? The Great Elder was taken away by force. It seems that the person who was appointed by the sect master was indeed the Great Elder. I think that the Great Elder is the sect master's right. The Great Elder's position has plummeted to the ground. Of the Great's position. Since the fall of Han Xiling, the Great Elder has also died. A group of cultivators sighed. They had stayed in Tiangang sect for so long, but they had never encountered such a thing. The Great Elder was taken away by force. Looking at the Great Elder's unwilling expression, it was obvious that this was the sect master's punishment. Since the Great Elder has ended up like this, it proves that the sect master is on Bailey Hongzhuang's side. We can't offend Bailey Hongzhuang in the future. Otherwise, we'll have to bear the consequences. The cultivators of Tiangang sect had already made up their minds. When Han Xiling was still around, they were not sure if the final winner would be Han Xiling or Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, there was no doubt about the answer. Bailey Hongzhuang was the future young sect master's wife. They had to treat her with respect. Chapter 1738. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen followed Situ Yan back to the bedroom. After what happened with Han Hongyi, they felt a little helpless. The Great Elder is really making trouble out of nothing this time. Hongzhuang, you don't have to take it to heart. Situ Yan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, his voice full of love and care. He did not want this to affect Hongzhuang's mood. Hongzhuang did not need to feel any psychological burden at all. Feeling Situ Yan's kindness, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, and a gentle and obedient smile slowly appeared on her lips. I understand. Di Beichen was also happy when he saw Situ Yen treating Bailey Hongzhuang so well. Hongzhuang's life in the past was really too hard. In comparison, although he was also an orphan, he had his master by his side to take care of him and encourage him instead of being bullied by others. He was much happier than Hongzhuang. In the past, only he felt sorry for Hongzhuang. Now, his master would also feel sorry for Hongzhuang. Thinking of this, he felt happy for Hongzhuang. Situ Yen patted Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and said earnestly, "Hongzhuang, Grandpa was not by your side in the past and could not take good care of you. Now, as long as it's something you need, just tell Grandpa. As long as Grandpa can do it, Grandpa will definitely do it." Situ Yan's eyes were deep and serious. He only wanted to treat Hongzhuang well to make up for the debt he owed to Hongzhuang all these years. On the other hand, to him, it was already a very happy thing that God gave him such an opportunity to treat others well. "Thank you, Grandpa." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled sweetly, and there was a hint of satisfaction in her smile. In this life, she had not experienced the slightest bit of care from her elders. Now that she could feel her grandfather's care, she felt very happy. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang call him Grandpa, Situ Yen had an indescribable satisfaction. Today was probably the day he smiled the most happily ever since Mu Jin's left his life. "Hongzhuang, don't worry. I will definitely rescue Lingbing and your father as soon as possible." Situ Yan's deep and aged eyes flickered with a serious and resolute light. His daughter had suffered so much because of him, so he had to rescue Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao as soon as possible. As long as he rescued Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao, it would be time to settle the score with that vicious woman, Yu Siqing. From the beginning until now, because of Yu Siqing's numerous obstructions, his life was ruined, and even his daughter and granddaughter were ruined. If he did not hack Yu Siqing into 1,000 pieces, it would be impossible to dispel the hatred in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She knew that Situ Yen was more eager than her to rescue her parents as soon as possible. They were all working hard for this goal. Now that everything was gradually improving, she believed that they were getting closer and closer to rescuing her parents. Soon, she would be able to reunite with her parents. In her previous life, she had never seen her parents. In this life, she was glad that her parents were still alive. At least they still had a chance to reunite. "Grandpa, let's work hard together," Bailey Hongzhuang said firmly. "Father and mother must be waiting for us to rescue them." Chapter 1739. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was conversing with Si Tuyen, Qin Ai, and Gu Jingqing's voices rang out from outside the door. They were not like the great elder who insisted on seeing the sect master. If the sect master was unwilling to see them now, they would definitely leave immediately. Subordinate Qin Ai requests an audience with the sect master. Subordinate Gu Jingqing requests an audience with the sect master. Hearing the voices outside the door, Si Tuyen's expression changed and he could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. What he cared about the most now was his granddaughter's thoughts. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She recalled that when she had first arrived at Tiangang sect, Palace Master Qin and Palace Master Gu had spoken up for her in the meeting hall. She understood that Palace Master Qin and Palace Master Gu had always been on Di Beichen's side. Hence, she was grateful to the two sect masters. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not object, Si Tuyen then said, "Come in." Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing walked into the room after hearing Si Tuyen's voice. When they saw that only Si Tuyen, Di Beichen, and Bailey Hongzhuang were in the room, they were very calm. "Greetings, sect master." "Greetings, young sect master." The two of them bowed respectfully. "You may rise." Si Tuyen raised his right hand and indicated for Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing to rise. Bailey Hongzhuang also bowed when she saw Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing. "Greetings, Palace Master Qin and Palace Master Gu." Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang. Their feelings towards Bailey Hongzhuang were extremely complicated. In terms of status, Bailey Hongzhuang was only an ordinary disciple of Tiangang sect. Hence, it was very normal for Bailey Hongzhuang to bow to them. But they were equally clear that Bailey Hongzhuang was the future young sect master's wife, so this greeting wasn't appropriate. From their point of view, sect master, young sect master and Bailey Hongzhuang were here to discuss matters. Perhaps they were discussing the marriage between young sect master and Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for this, the first elder's repeated interruptions wouldn't have caused the sect master to fly into a rage. Situ Yan took in the changes in Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's expressions. He could also understand Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's helplessness in terms of etiquette. Sect master, isn't it a little inappropriate for the great elder to be punished like this? Qin Ai could not help but speak up after thinking about it for a while. Usually, many of the sect's matters were handled by the great elder. Now that the great elder was locked up, he wouldn't be able to come out for the time being. This would definitely affect the sect to a certain extent. Qin Ai could not help but look worriedly at Situ Yen. He did not want to anger the sect master because of this matter. This is caused by his own actions. There's no need to plead for leniency. Situ Yan's attitude was firm. He wasn't giving Han Hengyi a chance because of the beautiful jade doll. It was Han Hengyi's own actions that led to this outcome. In the days that he wasn't around, Bewitching had left Tiangang sect because he was being persecuted. Hence, in those 3 years, the great elder's sense of authority had been constantly magnified. Until now, the great elder's impetuous heart had yet to calm down. If he didn't give the great elder a warning, who knew what kind of outrageous things the great elder would do? The great elder hasn't dealt with the sect's matters these days. Why don't we take this opportunity to let the other elders familiarize themselves with it? Chapter 1740. Following Si Tuyen's words, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's expressions changed. Stormy waves involuntarily surged in their hearts. The sect master's words meant that he wanted to take away first elder's authority. Once the other elders were allowed to divide the first elder's responsibilities, it would mean that the other elders were allowed to divide the first elder's authority. In this way, it wouldn't be long before first elder's power was stripped away. Thinking of this, the two of them found it inconceivable. First elder had been in Tiangang sect for so long and had never encountered such a situation. Why would the sect master make such a decision? They couldn't understand. Could it be because of the first elder's unreasonable pestering just now? Even so, it shouldn't be enough to make the sect master make such a decision. Instinctively, they felt that there must be a problem here. It definitely wasn't as simple as what they had just witnessed. Bailey Hongzhuang was also shocked when she heard Si Tuyen's words. She didn't expect her grandfather to take away first elder's authority so decisively. However, to her, this was also a good thing. With first elder around, she would undoubtedly have endless troubles. As long as first elder lost his authority, he wouldn't be able to affect her in any way. Bewitching completely agreed with Si Tuyen's idea. Before returning to Tiangang sect, he already had this idea. He originally planned to take away first elder's authority bit by bit. Once he completely took over first elder's authority, it would be easy to deal with him. However, he needed his master's permission for this matter. After all, first elder's status in Tiangang sect wasn't simple. However, he didn't expect his master to make the decision before he even voiced his thoughts. Si Tuyen's expression was as calm as the wind. In a few days, he might not stay in the sect. He had to investigate Mu Lingbing's location. He could only be at ease if he rescued Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao as soon as possible. While he was away, he had to avoid any possibility of harming Hongzhuang. Obviously, the first elder was the most uncertain factor. Sect master, you. Gu Jingqing stared blankly at Si Tuyen. He really couldn't understand why the sect master would make such a decision. The great elder is currently immersed in his own personal feelings. His actions are unjust. Situ Yen explained faintly. He did not make this decision entirely out of selfishness. In fact, from the moment the first elder started pestering Hong Zhuang endlessly, he had already lost the right to be the first elder. Hearing this, Gu Jingqing also stopped talking. He understood that what the sect master said was very reasonable. Even in other sects, the great elder's actions would also be punished. Palace Master Qin, Palace Master Gu, since you're here, let me tell you some good news. A smile appeared on Si Tuyan's face. He had known Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing for many years. They were very good friends. Now that there was such a good thing, he naturally wouldn't avoid it. As Si Tuyan's voice fell, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's eyes lit up. Their gazes drifted between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. They already had a certain guess in their hearts. Chapter 1741. However, when Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing heard Si Tuyan's next words, they could not help but freeze on the spot. They stared at Si Tuyan in a daze, wondering if they had heard wrongly. That was because the news was too unbelievable. Hong Zhuang is my long-lost maternal granddaughter. Si Tuyan's face was filled with a joyful smile. His dark eyes lost some of their seriousness and dignity and were filled with happiness and joy from the bottom of his heart. This was the happiest thing for him. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at each other. They really thought that they had heard wrongly. However, when they saw the astonished look in the other party's eyes, they understood that they had not heard wrongly. Everything they had heard was true. Bailey Hongzhuang is the sect master's granddaughter. Gu Jingqing could not help but raise his voice and ask again. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Si Tuyan also knew how shocking this news was and continued, "That's right, you didn't hear wrongly. Hong Zhuang is my maternal granddaughter." "How can this be?" Qin Ai stared at Si Tuyan in disbelief. He had never seen any woman by the sect master's side. How could he suddenly have a maternal granddaughter? This was simply impossible. However, just as Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing were feeling suspicious, their gazes suddenly landed on the love testing stone which was shining with a golden light. They were no strangers to the love testing stone and naturally understood the meaning behind the golden light that was flashing from it. The golden light was a sign of family. At that moment, Qin Ai and Si Tuyan suddenly understood. It turns out that the sect master's earlier statement about being busy was not an excuse at all. He really was busy. The sect master was busy conducting a blood test with Bailey Hongzhuang to confirm the relationship between the two. However, at this critical moment, the great elder had repeatedly caused trouble. Anyone else would be in an incomparably terrible mood. It seems that the great elder has really bumped into the muzzle of a gun this time. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing felt helpless. The great elder could only blame his own bad luck for having come to this stage. If this had happened at a different time, perhaps things would not have developed to this stage. However, on second thought, so what if the first elder didn't come just now? Bailey Hongzhuang was the grandfather of the sect leader. How could the first elder gain any advantage from Bailey Hongzhuang? He was just asking to be humiliated. The two men's hearts had been completely filled with Bailey Hongzhuang's identity. This was really too unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang was just a cultivator from a small empire. If the young sect master had not been forced to go to Fengbo country, they would not have been able to see Hongzhuang. However, now that everything was connected, Bailey Hongzhuang actually had such an amazing identity. It was really amazing. The next moment, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang differently. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer a disciple of Tiangang sect, nor was she the fiancée of the young sect master. Instead, she was the beloved daughter of the sect master. This identity, even the original Han Xiling could not be compared to her. Because Han Xiling was only the great elder's granddaughter while Bailey Hongzhuang was the sect master's maternal granddaughter. Congratulations, sect master. Congratulations, Lady Bailey. Chapter 1742. Sect Leader, this is truly predestined. I never thought that Lady Bailey, the young sect leader's sweetheart, would turn out to be your granddaughter. Qin Ai narrowed his eyes and his face was full of smiles. This was truly a joyous matter. He had known the sect leader for so many years and had always known that the sect leader had a sweetheart when he was young. However, due to various reasons, they did not end up together. Regarding this, he only felt that it was a pity. A heroic figure like the sect leader should not have encountered such a situation. He never thought that the sect leader already had a granddaughter. This meant that the sect leader also had a daughter. This was truly shocking. That's right. Everything in this world is truly a coincidence. Situ Yen sighed faintly. Now that he recalled everything, he also felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. If he had not talked about the past with Bewitching over wine, he was afraid that until now, he would not have known that Hong Zhuang was his granddaughter. All of this was arranged by the heavens. The heavens are destined to let the sect leader and Lady Bailey recognize each other. Gu Jingqing's smile was sincere. This was truly a joyous matter for the Tiangang sect. As such, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were simply a match made in heaven. One was the sect leader's long-lost granddaughter while the other was the disciple that the sect leader was proud of. The combination of the two was undoubtedly the best. He believed that once this news spread, no one would doubt that Bailey Hongzhuang and the young sect leader were not compatible. This was because the two of them were extremely compatible in terms of status and other aspects. Sect leader, such a joyous matter as finding your granddaughter should be celebrated properly. Coincidentally, we can also let others know about Lady Bailey's true identity. Qin Ai thought for a moment before he slowly spoke up. The sect leader had found his granddaughter. This was an extremely important matter. Only by solemnly spreading this news would Bailey Hongzhuang be able to clear her name. She was not a cultivator from a small empire. She was a pearl covered in dust. Hearing Qin Ai's suggestion, Situ Yen raised his right hand and stopped Qin Ai's thoughts. It's not time yet. When the time comes, it won't be too late for you to prepare everything. Now, I will only tell the two of you this information. You must not leak this information out. Situ Yen warned in a serious tone. There was no problem in revealing Hong Zhuang's identity. However, he was worried that once this news spread, Yu Xiqing would immediately find out. That would be extremely disadvantageous for Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao. Hearing Situ Yan's warning, doubt surfaced in Qin Ai's and Gu Jingqing's eyes. Then, they nodded seriously. Don't worry, sect leader. We will definitely not leak this news. Si Tuyen nodded slightly and looked at Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing with satisfaction. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing were his trusted aides. The reason why he chose to tell them about this matter now was to make Hong Zhuang's cultivation in Tiangang sect smoother. I may not be in Tiangang sect for the next period of time. Help me take care of Hong Zhuang. Situ Yen said. Don't worry, sect master. We will definitely take good care of young miss. At this moment, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing had already changed the way they addressed Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was now Tiangang sect's eldest young miss. She was truly a eldest young miss. Chapter 1743. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing understood that from today onwards, Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was no longer the same as before. In the future, they would definitely take good care of Bailey Hongzhuang. Although this news could not be leaked out for the time being, they could no longer treat Bailey Hongzhuang with the same attitude as before. Seeing Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's attitude, Si Tuyen nodded in satisfaction. Whether it was Qin Ai or Gu Jingqing, they were both trustworthy elders in the sect. With the two of them and Di Beichen, Hong Zhuang no longer had to worry about her days in Tiangang sect. Sect master, since Miss's identity needs to be kept a secret for the time being, how about we address Miss as an ordinary cultivator in front of others? Gu Jingqing asked. Since they had to keep a secret, they needed to be more careful in front of others. That's how it should be. Si Tuyen spoke slowly as his gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. There were still many things that had yet to be resolved, so Hongzhuang could only suffer for the time being. After they rescued Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing, Hongzhuang's name could be righted. Sensing Si Tuyen's concerned gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Grandfather, don't worry about me. I don't care about these things. As long as I can acknowledge grandfather, this is the happiest thing for me. She didn't care about anything else. She had been living like this all these years. These false titles wouldn't affect anything. When everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang's calm appearance, they understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's words came from the bottom of her heart. She really didn't care about these things. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang like this, Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing couldn't help but sigh. Previously, they already felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament was extraordinary. She didn't seem like a cultivator from a small empire. Now that they knew Bailey Hongzhuang's true identity, they finally understood that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't an ordinary person. Most young people were vain, but this was not seen in Bailey Hongzhuang. She was indeed worthy of being the granddaughter of the sovereign. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with appreciation. His wife was always so understanding. Si Tuyen patted Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and looked at her lovingly. It was a great blessing for Si Tuyen to have such a granddaughter. After Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing understood everything, they took their leave first. The sect leader and Bailey Hongzhuang had just met, so they must have a lot to say. If they continued to stay there, they would have disturbed him. After leaving the sect master's bedroom, Qin Ai's face could not help but be filled with shock. Eldest Miss is actually the granddaughter of the sect master. This news is really amazing. Did Eldest Miss come to Tiangang's sect to recognize her relatives? Gu Jingqing thought about it and shook his head. I don't think so. If this was her motive, Eldest Miss would have already met the sect leader before the assessment competition. I believe that they haven't known about this for long. You saw the kinship testing stone just now. Hearing this, a deep light flashed across Qin Ai's eyes. That's true. Great Elder kept disturbing the sect leader and Eldest Miss reunion and even attacked outside. No wonder the sect leader was so angry. Gu Jingqing and Qin Ai looked at each other. At a time like this, they didn't have any intention of pleading for leniency for Great Elder. Chapter 1744. After Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Now that Hongzhuang and Si Tuyen had acknowledged each other, there were some things that they should tell Si Tuyen. Grandfather, I have something to tell you. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke slowly. Now that they had reached this stage, they should understand each other's situation. Si Tuyen nodded slightly and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gentle gaze. Speak. I obtained the inheritance of the Celestial Palace's Palace Master during the assessment competition and was chosen as the successor of Limitless Palace. Therefore, I have to go to Limitless Palace to cultivate every once in a while. Bailey Hongzhuang told Si Tuyen the matter concisely. Her master was also a great help in her revenge. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, even with Si Tuyen's indifference, he couldn't help but be surprised. The successor of Limitless Palace? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Yes. She knew that anyone who heard her words would reveal a surprised expression. In fact, this matter was indeed hard to believe. At this moment, Di Beichen spoke up. Master, before returning to Tiangang's sect, Hongzhuang and I have already made a trip to Limitless Palace. You've already confirmed it? Si Tuyen's eyes flashed with wisdom and shock. He didn't have much contact with Limitless Palace, but he had a certain understanding of Yu Linfeng. As everyone knew, Yu Linfeng was a genius. When he first appeared, his strength was very impressive. To be able to obtain such a position in a short period of time, in many people's opinion, Yu Linfeng's success couldn't be replicated. However, he didn't expect that Yu Linfeng was actually Heng Zhuang's master. What surprised him the most was that Yu Linfeng actually chose Heng Zhuang as his successor and wanted to hand over Limitless Palace to Heng Zhuang. This was really shocking. I've already confirmed it. The palace master and madam of Limitless Palace are very fond of Heng Zhuang. They also know about Heng Zhuang's background and are willing to help Heng Zhuang. Bewitching's expression was serious. This matter was no small matter. He had some doubts before, but after returning from Limitless Palace, these doubts no longer existed. Although Si Tuyen was very shocked, he also knew that since Bewitching and Heng Zhuang had said so, it proved that everything was true. I see. Si Tuyen looked at Tuyen was surprised, he didn't expect that Heng Zhuang would have such an ability. It was beyond his expectations. Our Heng Zhuang is really different. As far as I know, the palace master of Limitless Palace has always been a strict person. Ordinary cultivators can't enter his eyes at all. Heng Zhuang can pass his assessment and become the successor of Limitless Palace. It can be seen that he is very satisfied with Heng Zhuang. Si Tuyen's eyes were full of praise and expectation. In fact, he also thought that Heng Zhuang was very outstanding, whether it was her personality, character, or talent. Although he hadn't taken care of Heng Zhuang for so many years, Heng Zhuang still grew to such an extent. It made him feel guilty and gratified at the same time. Bewitching's face was also filled with a proud smile. Heng Zhuang had always been a wife that he was proud of. No matter how others saw her, in his heart, no woman in the world could be compared to her. It seems that the relationship between our Tiangang sect and Limitless Palace will be getting closer in the future. Chapter 1745. Listening to Si Tuyen's words, Bailey Hengzhuang and Bewitching's faces revealed a joyful smile. Now that the situation was getting better and better, they only felt that their hopes were getting bigger and bigger. However, Si Tuyen couldn't help but frown after thinking for a while. He had a question that he couldn't understand. Logically speaking, if Palace Master Yu knew about Heng Zhuang's identity, he shouldn't have chosen to help Heng Zhuang. After all, this would put Limitless Palace in an awkward situation. As the sect master of Tiangang sect, Si Tuyen understood the thoughts of ordinary sect masters very well. If there wasn't enough reason, they would definitely not put the sect in danger. Now that Yu Clan and Lan Clan were their opponents, if they really fought, once Yu Clan and Lan Clan joined forces, even if Tiangang sect stepped in, it would be difficult to resist. Now that Heng Zhuang had expressed her attitude, Limitless Palace was willing to join forces with Tiangang sect to deal with Lan Clan and Yu Clan. In this kind of situation where both sides were competing, no one could say for sure who would be the final winner. What kind of reason did Limitless Palace Master choose to help Heng Zhuang? This was really too incomprehensible. Bailey Hengzhuang's eyes changed slightly. She was very clear that with Si Tuyen's wisdom, it was impossible for her to hide anything. Grandfather, back then, the rainbow divine pearl in my body was snatched away and integrated into Lan Qingyan's body. Bailey Hengzhuang said slowly. Hearing Bailey Hengzhuang's words, Si Tuyen's eyes couldn't help but be filled with a hint of ruthlessness. This was the biggest pain in his heart. At that time, Heng Zhuang was still a baby in swaddling clothes. He was very clear about the danger of a baby in swaddling clothes suddenly having her dantian broken and the rainbow divine pearl forcibly taken out. Under such circumstances, it was already a relief that Heng Zhuang could live until now. Yu Xiqing was really too vicious. She could even do this to a baby in swaddling clothes. It was simply unbearable. Right now, he only felt that Yu Xiqing was not fit to be called a human. That woman was simply a vicious and merciless beast. He, Situ Yen swore that he would let Yu Manlan and Lan Qingyan know the price they had to pay for attacking his daughter and granddaughter. However, what Bailey Hongzhuang said next stunned Situ Yen. Master gave me a 7-colored divine pearl. Right now, I already have one in my body. Bailey Hongzhuang had a clear and bright smile on her face. In the past, she had never thought that she would be able to obtain the rainbow divine pearl again. Her master had really given her too much hope. As soon as these words came out, Situ Yan's eyes suddenly froze, and his expression revealed a bit of surprise and uncertainty. He wondered if he had heard wrongly. In the next moment, the origin energy in Bailey Hongzhuang's body surged, and a 7-colored radiance emerged from her hand. The lively 7-colored radiance was like a swimming fish jumping in Bailey Hongzhuang's palm, and a tyrannical aura spread out from it. Looking at this 7-colored radiance, Situ Yan's surprise slowly turned into horror. This is really 7-colored energy. He had a certain understanding of the Lan family's mysterious inheritance, the Rainbow Divine Pearl. This was the 7-colored origin energy that only the owner of the Rainbow Divine Pearl would have. Just by sensing it slightly, he could feel that this origin energy was much stronger than ordinary origin energy. Chapter 1746. How did you fuse it? At this time, Si Tuyen was not most concerned about the power of the rainbow origin energy. He was more worried about how Hong Zhuang had fused with it. Back then, her dantian had been forcefully broken open to take out the rainbow pearl. As a result, Hong Zhuang had been a cripple for so many years and could not cultivate. He did not know how Hong Zhuang had been able to cultivate again, but it must have been a painful process. Now, how did Hong Zhuang fuse with the rainbow pearl? Could it be that she had broken open her dantian again and put the rainbow pearl in? Si Tuyen didn't dare to continue thinking about it because it was too shocking. Looking at Si Tuyen's shocked expression, Bailey Hongzhuang had already guessed Si Tuyen's thoughts. She immediately explained, "Grandfather, it was Master who thought of a way to help me fuse without breaking my dantian." Only her master knew the specific method. At that time, she was almost immersed in pain and did not pay attention to how her master did it. Hearing that, Si Tuyen breathed a sigh of relief. However, the shock in his heart could not be eliminated. No matter what method was used, it must be an extremely painful process to fuse a rainbow pearl into one's body. As cultivators, they were very clear about the use of the dantian. Once something unfamiliar entered one's dantian, it would definitely cause great pain, let alone fusing a rainbow pearl into one's body. Hong Zhuang did not break her dantian and directly fused with it. This was probably even more painful than breaking her dantian. At this moment, Si Tuyen understood why Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had increased so much during the assessment. Even if Hong Zhuang had obtained an opportunity, she had also suffered pain that ordinary people could not bear. He couldn't imagine the pain he was going through. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was smiling brightly and relaxed, Si Tuyen felt even more heartache. His granddaughter was too strong. The pain she had suffered along the way was simply shocking. Originally, none of this should have happened. Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gaze full of heartache. He was even more clear about the hardships his wife had gone through to get to where she was now. However, many people still doubted his wife. Si Tuyen's heart was extremely complicated, but he did not reveal it. He would make it up to his daughter and granddaughter one by one in the coming days. Palace Master Yu actually has the rainbow pearl. She even knows the method to fuse with it. Si Tuyen spoke slowly as his eyes flashed with wisdom. Yu Linfeng know the method that even the Lan family did not know. This showed how much Yu Linfeng understood the rainbow pearl. This was too strange. As far as I know, Palace Master Yu's cultivators, Bewitching, Tian's granddaughter. The Limitless Palace Master hated the Lan clan. This was a publicly known secret in the cultivation world. Although they didn't say it out loud, everyone understood in their hearts. In that case, Palace Master Yu still accepted Heng Zhuang as his disciple and helped her take revenge. Could it be that they both resented the Lan family? After thinking about this, Si Tuyen had an epiphany. Perhaps, this was the reason why Palace Master Yu was so determined to help Heng Zhuang. Di Beichen's eyes also flashed with doubt. This was something that he had never understood. He always felt that there were other factors involved, but he could not figure out what it was. He was helpless. Chapter 1747. A few years ago, I heard that Palace Master Yu hated the Lan family so much because he had a grudge with the Lan family in the past and he was a member of the Lan family back then. Si Tuyen had a complicated look in his eyes. As the news was too shocking, he had never forgotten about it. However, he had never delved into it. Everyone had their own secrets and experiences. There was no need for them to dig it out forcefully as it was meaningless. Now that he knew about Heng Zhuang, he felt that the news might be true. It was precisely because Heng Zhuang and Palace Master Yu were both treated unfairly by the Lan family that Palace Master Yu was so determined to help Heng Zhuang. Hearing Si Tuyen's words, Bailey Heng Zhuang was stunned for a moment. She never thought that her grandfather would have heard of such a rumor. The truth was just as her grandfather had guessed. However, she could not say it out loud. At least, she could not say it out loud without her master's permission. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with shock. He never thought that Palace Master Yu would be a member of the Lan family. If Palace Master Yu is a member of the Lan family, then everything makes sense. Di Beichen quickly understood that there was such a story behind it. He was afraid that Palace Master Yu and Heng Zhuang were in the same boat. If that was the case, then it was not strange that Palace Master Yu would help Heng Zhuang. Bailey Heng Zhuang did not say much. It was her grandfather's guess. With her grandfather's wisdom and the rumors he had heard before, it was not strange for him to guess this. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. It seemed that her master did not plan to keep this secret forever. He was just unwilling to talk about it. Thinking of this, Bailey Heng Zhuang could not help but feel puzzled. What kind of attitude did the Lan family have towards her master? Si Tuyen and Di Beichen did not say much about this matter. It was enough for them to know that Limitless Palace was their ally. Heng Zhuang, you and Beichen have been running around for so many days. You must be tired. Rest well, Si Tuyen said with concern. Ever since Heng Zhuang came out of the competition, she had been running all over the place and hadn't had a good rest. Now that everything was finally settled, it was time to have a good rest. Hearing this, Bailey Heng Zhuang smiled and nodded, okay. As for Bailey Heng Zhuang's residence, Si Tuyen decided to let Heng Zhuang stay in Di Beichen's palace first. Di Beichen's palace was very big, and there were many rooms. Moreover, Di Beichen and Bailey Heng Zhuang had already gotten married in Feng Bo country a few years ago. On the other hand, Di Beichen's palace had a cultivation room. If Bailey Heng Zhuang and Di Beichen cultivated together in the room, the speed of their cultivation would be very fast. When Bailey Heng Zhuang and Di Beichen left the palace, Si Tuyen couldn't help but reveal a smile. He never thought that he would have a daughter and a granddaughter. Now that he had acknowledged Heng Zhuang, he felt an indescribable satisfaction. The most important thing now was to rescue Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao. However, there was an even bigger question in his heart. Since Mu Lingbing was his daughter, then where did Jin Se go? Until now, he had no news of Jin Se. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.